First time in history, world leaders from every country have agreed to cut carbon emissions. The deal was made during the Climate Change Summit in Paris. Simon McGregor-Wood reports on the historic agreement.
L'accord de Paris pour le climat est accepté.
With the bang of his gavel, French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius signalled the deal was done. There were celebrations mixed with relief. Over 190 countries, for the first time ever, agreeing on a common strategy to tackle climate change, the Paris Agreement.
I now invite the Conference of the Party to adopt a draft decision entitled Paris Agreement, which features in the document. I'm looking around the room. I see the reaction is positive. I don't hear any objection. The Paris Agreement for the climate is accepted.
It was the fourth draft of the deal, forged after yet another all-night session of negotiations. The agreement contains a commitment to keep global temperature rise to below 2 degrees Celsius, and for the first time mentions 1.5 degrees as a future target. It also promises new climate finance, starting from $100 billion a year to help developing nations. It requires countries to review their carbon-cutting pledges every 5 years. And it calls for carbon emissions to peak as soon as possible and for zero emissions in the second half of this century. It was hailed as a major breakthrough.
This is a tremendous victory for all of our citizens, not for any one country or any one bloc, but for everybody here who has worked so hard to bring us across the finish line. It's a victory for all of the planet and for future generations.
This is a historic deal. We're seeing all countries of the world making a political commitment to reduce their emissions and deal with the impact of climate change.
But others aren't so happy, saying the deal isn't tough enough to head off the worst effects of climate change. In downtown Paris, protesters had gathered all day to demand more.
Well, Simon McGregor-Wood joins us from Paris now. Simon, it seems pretty euphoric there, but I suppose in some respects the hard work starts now.
Yes, the atmosphere is a little bit less euphoric than it was a few hours ago. I think fatigue is beginning to set in. We've got a few speakers back in the plenary chamber getting their 3 minutes to describe their enthusiasm for the report. But yes, there is a sense now that we're going to have to pack up here. Everyone's going to go back to their domestic capitals to sell the deal to their people, to their political classes, and to start taking action on the pledges that they tabled here at the beginning of this process 2 weeks ago. Even if all of those pledges to cut carbon emissions and convert their economies to renewables are calculated and added up, it's still not going to meet the target. So there is this sense here that this is a great deal, it's an historic deal, it's never been done before, it's better than anyone could have hoped for at the beginning of this process, but now it must be seen as a starting point for moving everyone's economy away from the traditional reliance on fossil fuel. It's the start, it's not the end.
So what are the steps from here?
Well, I mean, enshrined in the deal is this notion that we have to limit global temperature rises. Traditionally it was 2 degrees. The key headline of the deal, I guess, is this new figure of 1.5. It's an aspiration. We'll get below 2, but 1.5 is critical. Many of the vulnerable nations, the island nations like the Marshall Islands and some of the Caribbean islands, are already suffering the effects of sea level rise. 1.5 is absolutely crucial for them. What we've got to now also see is this process of reviewing. One critical achievement of the deal is that everyone's going to come back as early as 2018 to review what they've done so far and to potentially improve their pledges. The idea is that technology gets better, renewable fuels become cheaper, so every 5 years, 2018, then 2023, and every 5 years after that, Paul, people will come back and sit around the table and say, well, I can do better now because I've got more access to wind turbines, I've got more access to solar, etc., etc. So that is the process. It's tough. No one's making any excuses. It's not going to be easy to convert all this fine rhetoric to tough political choices. But I think what's shocked a lot of people here is the uniformity across the political spectrum, across the regions, across all these blocks of different countries. Everyone realizes that this is the last chance, and they took it.
Okay, Simon McGregor-Wood, thank you very much.